I'm really delighted to be welcoming Sarah Nabachwa to give the next presentation. Sarah is a lecturer in marketing in the Faculty of Business and Management Science at Mbarara University of Science and Technology in Uganda. And we're really delighted that Sarah is one of our AFOX visiting fellows this year. So I'd ask you to all join me in welcoming Sarah to the stage.
Thank you, David, for the introduction. Okay, yes, I'm Sarah, and I thank AFOX for the opportunity. I'm here to talk about the business teaching case studies. So I'm writing a business case teaching case studies, and I get my motivation from the fact that I teach business at both undergraduate and master's levels, and I often use cases. But my students find them very challenging because, again, I borrow them from Europe or Asia or the US. And so when we start the discussions, my students find it hard to conceptualize the case, and then they get bored. And by the time we finish the discussion, it's so weak and it's so a little shallow. So I thought if I could then write the business teaching case studies that are locally contextualized to the Ugandan business operating environment, that way they'll become relevant for our students. And I specifically wanted to start with the street smart entrepreneurs who are the informal sector. And again, these are the kinds of businesses that our MBAs will eventually support in future. But besides that, they are the majority in Uganda. And we find that we don't have so many business case studies that are dedicated to writing about these street smarts and how they engage in business, how they actually take these limited resources in constrained environments, and then eventually how they scale up. So I've collected 5 preliminary cases, but I'm going to be focusing on 2 specifically. The first one is Quality Supermarket. Quality Supermarket is the first and the biggest local supermarket in Uganda. And it was started by Apollo Mutungi. Apollo was a hawker. He didn't start with anything except a small radio. His mom had given him a small radio after finishing school. And so he didn't know what to use to do this, with this radio. So he decides to sell it for 7,000. And then he starts to trade. He would go to a place where there is scarcity, and then he would look for whatever is missing and do that exchange. So he took advantage of the scarcity that was happening during the economic war of President Idi Amin Dada. At the time, the president had expelled the Asian community. And so there was inflation, there was scarcity of almost everything. So Apollo uses this opportunity to scale up his business. Currently, Apollo has, and family, they have about 4 big retail establishments. And again, they have had more establishments, but they've decided to close them and focus on the 4 where they have their own premises. So the case looks at the manifestation of the 5 principles of effectuation by Professor Sarah Sarasvathy. And in the case, I highlight the several dilemma, because every case, the dilemma becomes like the centerpiece for the case. So the major dilemma for the case is actually the erratic government tax policies. We've also noted that about 80% of the international retailers have left Uganda because, again, the taxes are very challenging. But it's not only the taxes, there are other reasons why they keep leaving. So basically the case is around these dilemmas. The second case I also want to highlight is that of the Ghetto Research Lab. The Ghetto Research Lab is that of Patrick Mujuzi. Patrick is from the ghetto. And after school, he couldn't find work, so he decided to go back to the ghetto. And he managed the ghetto music studio, but it wasn't working out well. So on the side, he's always had the need to clean his environment. He lives in a ghetto, they call it Kamocha, it's the biggest ghetto in Uganda. And so he decides to say, clean the environment. So he takes opportunity, he takes these would-be musicians, they go to the street with very big loudspeakers and they mobilize people to collect the garbage. And then he would go and call the council to come and get the rubbish. But most times the council never showed. So he wondered what to do with the rubbish. So he said, how about if I take these plastic bottles and then I pack them with the polythene papers, which are all in plenty. So he would pack it until it gets very tight to make like a brick. And so he would use it as a construction material. So Patrick decided to start constructing these toilets with the plastic material. Again, the other challenge in the ghetto is that they have toilets, public toilets, but one has to pay some little money. But again, in the ghetto, people don't have even this very little money. So what they do is to do their waste in a polythene paper, and then they fly it in a drainage system. So Patrick thought he could use now this material that he has made to make toilets that are free. But the toilets are also made in a way that there's a compartment where the waste would go. So at the end of the day, Patrick and team come and collect this waste, and then they dump it somewhere. And then at the end of the year, it turns into manure, which then they sell to the farmers. So Patrick is more of a social entrepreneur who actually has so many innovations. They are intertwined. It's like one innovation, they get a solution, then they get another one, and then they get another challenge. So another challenge, maybe to be fast, is a challenge they looked at. There are so many women in the ghetto that cannot work. And so women are constrained because of that. But the reason why they can't work is because they have children and they have nobody to take care of the children. So Patrick, that is the Ghetto Lab. It's not like our usual Ghetto Lab. I'll get into that later. But so they thought they had some space left, so they would encourage the women to then bring the children to this Ghetto Lab, and then the women can now go and work. So at the end of the day, the women pay 2,000 shillings, which is like $50 every day, and then at least they can earn. So just like the other cases that I'm writing, Patrick has a dilemma. His biggest dilemma is that he's failed to actually translate all these innovations into money. So there's still there's a challenge of the marketing of all the produce. There are quite a number of innovations, like you can see, all these innovations, but they've failed to now turn that into money. So that is still the challenge, and that is where the case is rotating around. So to conclude, again, I'm writing these case studies. For one, I want to encourage my colleagues, not just at the University of Mbarara University, but also my colleagues around Africa, to use the business teaching case study as a mode of teaching. And again, the reason why most of us do not use them is because of the first case that I noted, that majority are borrowed, and so the students find them very challenging. So I would want that if we can write our locally contextualized case studies, that our colleagues can start using these case studies. But for the rest of other universities, say Oxford, they also need diversity. They would like to hear from what happens in business around the world, especially Africa. How do we do business? The other reason is whenever we are discussing, especially with the MBA classes, the students have quite amazing ideas that come out. So we are thinking that maybe some of these ideas can be then channeled back to the protagonists so that they can improve their business. Thank you.